I have been watching XLM for quite some time in this market, simply because, number one, I do think that XLM is extremely undervalued, extremely overlooked as well. But also, number two, I do compare it closely to XRP in the sense of XRP being well over a $100+ billion market cap, and XLM sitting still at about roughly a $7.12 billion market cap. There's a very big divide here. But also, on top of that, XLM does have a cap at 50 billion supply, which is significantly lower than XRP's, and also XLM does have a ton of volume happening behind it right now. I'm not taking anything away from XRP. I still think that XRP is incredibly bullish. I'm very happy with XRP right now. I'm just saying that I think that XLM compared to XRP right now has a lot more ROI left in it this cycle, and it will be a very big runner going forward this cycle as well, along with XRP. So having both of these in your portfolio, I think, is a very solid game plan for this cycle. And when it comes back to XLM, the number one thing that I have been putting a spotlight on is simply just the price chart. I mean, obviously, XLM is still incredibly bearish right now. Most of the altcoin market is going to remain bearish until we start to break out against Bitcoin. But during this time, we are watching major key areas of support. Right now, on the weekly chart, we are still just kind of ranging around that 21.5 cent zone. It's not a very strong support level, but I'm still watching it because if we do maintain this key area here, it could be very similar to, previous levels of support. Like, for example, if we go back to the lows of, the summer of 2024, we were dipping down into these areas where this was major support going all the way back to 2023 and technically the bear market lows. I kind of feel as if we're doing the same exact thing here where, we have these slight sort of run-ups and we have two back here and then we have that massive sell-off where everyone's getting very bearish again. And it feels as if we're kind of in this area on this chart. Now, I do suspect that we will have that big breakout, but we still need to kind of just get through this chop right now. And we might have another drop to retest the lows of like roughly sub 20 cents again. And that's going to shake out a lot of hands during this time. But in my opinion, while we are watching negative price action, most people are terrified to hit the buy button because they think that the floor is going to fall out from underneath them. I still think that right now with XLM hitting around these 20-cent levels, yes, we were buying at 10 cents. Yes, we were buying at sub 10 cents as well. But right now at the level in which we are trading at, it's not the best level to buy, number one. I'm not going to say that it's like an incredible area or entry point because it really isn't. Our incredible entry points were back in, of course, the bear market lows during this time. But we still are seeing major support around these levels. We are essentially retesting that resistance level since going all the way back to like November of 2020, as well as support going all the way back to 2018. I'm looking at this chart right now, and it feels as if we are starting to find some sort of floor on the chart, especially if we are looking at like the 24-hour view. I do think that around this range here, it's going to be looked at as a very good entry point later on. It's going to kind of be looked at as pretty much the levels going back here to November and October of 2024, right before we started to moon to the upside. Now, with that in mind, why do I think that XLM is going to have a much larger breakout year than even the prior push back in 2024 towards roughly like the end of 2024? Well, it's because of what's been happening around Stellar. Adoption for Stellar has been picking up in a big way. We have been noticing this pretty much all throughout 2025. For an example, it really started back here in November. And yes, there's other moves that have happened during the entire year of 2025. But back in November, we started to really see a big push on tokenization. Now, if you do remember the words of Danielle Dixon, she did say that they are targeting well over $1+ billion in tokenized RWAs. Now, their goal for that was the end of 2025. Did that happen? No, it didn't. But let's just say they did hit $1 billion in RWAs on chain. Now, it started with Taurus, which was Stellar tapped for tokenized clean energy financing pilot in Spain. This was definitely a very big initiative. And again, it's just another big tokenization push within the energy sector. At the same exact time that this happened, we also got another update later on in November, which was, of course, US Bank joining the stablecoin race among several financial institutions by testing its own token on the Stellar blockchain. Now, this is an initial test. I am watching and waiting for another big update with this because, again, typically these tests come back as, very positive tests that led to major efficiencies being, seen on these networks. And Stellar definitely does have great efficiencies when it comes back to, stablecoin payments or transactions in general. So I'm very excited to see what happens with this test or this trial, if you will. Now, on top of this, we did get another big update, and it was a historical one, and that was this one. The Republic of the Marshall Islands has completed the world's first on-chain disbursement of universal basic income on the Stellar blockchain. Regardless of how you view UBI, it's happening. This is why I always stress to everyone that we need to utilize these assets in a proper way. We need to make sure that we are paying ourselves, making sure that we are getting out of debt, making sure that we are making as much money as we possibly can during these cycles. And again, it's because UBI is becoming a reality, right? And we also know with AI and automation, it's only, starting to advance more and more and more. And it's also starting to replace more and more jobs as well. That's advancing the push on UBI. So this is another major move from Stellar to advance something like this in a key area around the world. And this is with a full-on government. This is government adoption of Stellar. Now, Crossmint made a post regarding this saying, historic news, we are helping tokenize a nation. The Marshall Islands is launching blockchain-based UBI, giving citizens dollar-denominated tokens they can receive, store, and send peer-to-peer from their phones. Now, we don't know how much is going to be tied back to this. However, this is definitely a big update. And I did put a spotlight on it slightly back in December as well, but we didn't really fully break it down, but this is definitely a big one. I mean, there's over 1,200 islands tied back to the Marshall Islands. There's a lot of, major initiatives happening around the whole, be your own bank through your phone. That's exactly what this is. This is pretty much tapping in mobile wallets through Crossmint. And I think that this is definitely going to be a very exciting one for Stellar. I think that this is going to be, one of many major key initiatives for Stellar around just currencies in general, because we already know the stablecoin initiative with, the US bank. This is just another one of those major moves happening within dollar denominated. It's kind of like a stablecoin. I mean, this is a bond. It's a US dollar denominated bond that's backed by US Treasury bills. It's kind of similar to a stablecoin. It's not exactly a stablecoin, but it's still, similar to it. But it is UBI, and it's on a custom digital wallet app, aka Crossmint. And this is all on the Stellar blockchain. Now, beyond that, we also got a few other big updates, which, we'll talk about later on in this video, but I do want to go over this. Over $1 billion in real world assets are now live on Stellar. This is with PayPal, Franklin Templeton, Ondo Finance. They are just some of the partners behind the $1 billion on Stellar. Starting off 2026 strong with more than $1 billion in RWAs on Stellar, thanks to our partners PayPal, FTDA, Ondo, and more. Yeah, this is crazy to see, and you could see it, right? Like, you could see that big spike going into the new year. We even see it over here. I mean, slightly we're under $1 billion here, but I think that's just because RWA.xyz is really not caught up. I think that the way that they pull data is kind of a little slow. However, up 54% nearly in distributed asset value. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy to see. It's showing you the big step here as well. And yeah, one of the core players here, Franklin Templeton, they started to add, and we could see the date here, right? By the end of 2025, Franklin Templeton had about roughly $570 million tied back to them. All the way into the 12th now, which technically it's the 11th, $640 million. But there's also other major spikes here. We do see them. We see Spyco EUT Bills Money Market Fund. That's well over $133 million now. Prior to that, it wasn't even, I mean, they had small amounts of volume on the network, but now they're adding additional things here. We also have hotels and things like that. I mean, it's crazy to see what's happening here, but we're starting to see real estate being tokenized through Red Swan. We have the hotels here. On top of that, We do see US Treasuries through Etherfuse. That's also up. It's nothing too crazy, but again, it's still over $11 million. Wisdom Tree also up slightly as well. That's a stock. I mean, we are seeing so much tokenization on Stellar right now, while we are entering one of the craziest years for crypto, the year of institutional adoption, where tokenization is most likely going to accelerate even more. Now is not the time to fade projects like Stellar that are showing you on chain the real value and also real adoption happening. Now, like I said, let's go back to one of the key updates that we got back in the end of December, which was, of course, 2025 wrapped up for Stellar. This is the podium, finished the Stellar Velocity report. So right off the rip, this was the numbers. RWAs were up 172%, TVL was up 95%, projects were 800 projects within the ecosystem, active accounts 10 million plus. Now the RWA growth, we do have all of them here, right? Red Swan, Centrifuge, Ondo, PayPal, Franklin Templeton. Centrifuge and Red Swan, they were announced during Meridian. We do have another Meridian happening this year. It's probably going to be closer to the end of the year, and I could just imagine what's going to be announced in between now to that event, but I could also just imagine what's going to be happening at that event and what's going to be announced at that event as well. If we are seeing major moves from names like Centrifuge and even Red Swan, which, by the way, Red Swan right now, if we're going to... let me see if I could find it. I mean, most of it's going to be real estate, and it seems as though they don't have that added just yet here, but we could see Red Swan. I mean, Red Swan has, 18 million, 16 million. I mean, they're adding so much value to the Stellar network. I mean, we have so many real estate projects here. Let me just go to, let me see if I can see it real quick. Let me go to the second page. I mean, look at how many tokenized real estate projects are tied to Red Swan alone. This is absolutely insane. There's probably well over $50+ million tied back to Red Swan alone. I wish that I could track all of that here, but it's going by individual, moves, but it seems as though it's like 36 million. And then they also have a few other ones like 6 million, 8 million. But again, it's wild to see how just some of these early names are already tokenizing at the scale they are. Now, on top of that, we do have down here, to match the strength of the Stellar ecosystem, Stellar protocol upgrades focused on scalability and usability. These upgrades increased network speed and capacity, and TVL climbed 95% to $211 million. Again, the growth around Stellar is absolutely insane. I mean, we are starting to see more and more increased growth for Stellar than ever before. And then 800+ projects, 10 million+ accounts. The growth here for Stellar cannot be overlooked. Everyone is looking at price action right now, and they're just saying, oh, it's bearish, just avoid it. Nobody cares about it. It's going to drop even more. And listen, it might. We could easily drop a little bit more. We could even retarget the lows of like 15 cents. It's still a possibility. However, I wouldn't even start to fade Stellar at all during this time if we did drop down to 15 cents. I would just be accumulating more and more and more. I treat a lot of these assets in the sense of, like, if I'm setting up weekly buy orders or even monthly buy orders, I'm not looking at the portfolio. I don't care about the portfolio. I'm not tracking the chart constantly because I know what's happening here. Tokenization of every single asset is beginning. We're starting to see more and more tokenization initiatives happening on some of these networks. We're starting to see the adoption really picking up. I mean, Stellar right now, just because it hit $1 billion, is all the way at number 4 on the list of RWA value on these networks. Already number 4. And I don't think that it's going to slow down. In fact, I think that Stellar this year could easily jump into the number 2 spot. I think that we hit $2 billion in RWA value this year. I would not be surprised by that at all. So Stellar, you cannot ignore Stellar at this moment. Ignoring it is going to be a big mistake in my opinion. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.